Yeah, this game is all about knocking off our enemies from a floating island. So we'll be playing as a sphere, and our enemies also will be sphere. Those enemies only goal is to knock us out of the floating island, and our goal is to dodge them and also knock them off the floating island. So let's get started. Let me create a new project here. I'll just write this prototype. Before that, let me just set my path, game demonstrations, and yeah, I'll select my folder first and then give it as prototype 4. So let this create. In the meantime, I'll be showing how the game would be like. So coming here, yes, in the prototype 4, let me just show you what we are going to do. Yes, this is the game. See, we'll be controlling the sideways. See, this is the power up that makes players, that gets our player some strength. See, normally the player does not have much strength, but whenever the player have this power up, the player will knock the enemies with much strength. Those enemies also will try. See, when the player gets off the ground, uh, the game stops. Like, we didn't stop the game explicitly, but that's the end of the game. So let's try once more. So just see how this player movement is different from others. Like, see, we have our camera rotating around, and when we press the forward arrow keys, the player will move in the direction forward and backward which camera is pointing. Say, just it's very hard to explain while playing this game. Yeah. See, in this case, see, my camera is oriented like this. If I press forward, it goes in that direction. When I press, see, let me show you like this. Just let me try to move the. So it just goes in this way when it just points in the camera direction and moves in that direction itself. So, and see, our enemies, every time they try to come, like they try to come towards our side. So that's the thing. Our Unity, I guess, still creating. So this is the complete game. In today's session, we'll be writing our player controller completely, and our enemy spawning. Like, we'll in the first lesson we'll be writing our player controller and the camera movement, etc. In the second lesson we'll be seeing the enemy will generate a random enemy, a single enemy at random positions, and will give the enemy the ability to follow us. Like, the enemy target is to come towards, like, knock us off the floating island, right? Will give that ability to the enemy. So let me just open this in Unity. Let me get my assets. So here, let me. I already downloaded them. So let me just import this. Install or upgrade. So these all are the things which I'll be getting. So just import. So we got everything in our project folder. So let's open the prototype one. Let me close this asset store. So here we have this with this setup, a few setup already done. Let's just hit play and see what happens. See, we have this bunch of clouds like thing already present for us. So now we'll be building upon this particular thing. So let's just go back to the normal mode, and for the first time we need our player, right? So let's just create a player and add some texture to the player. In this game, as we have seen, we have the basic types like we have the player as our sphere. So this time we don't have any characters or something for us. We'll be creating our own character. So just right click in the hierarchy, and there we can select 3D object and we can select a sphere. And when we focus on that, it's a bit small. So let me increase its scale to 1.5 on each axis. And now we'll notice that a bit of it is under the ground. So let me just take it a bit upwards. Just we are still more. Anyhow, we'll be adding a rigid body to this. So uh, because of the gravity, anyway, it will stay intact with the ground itself. So let me just add a rigid body. Yes, rigid body, and make sure that our gravity is checked so that we'll have our gravity enabled to this particular game object. And now coming to the course library, we have something called textures here. See, having the ball plain white, we can leave that, but we can do some cool stuff like first let me rename this to player. Yes, we can leave the player in the same way, but we can use these bunch of textures to get a different look to our player. We can do that by dragging that onto our player. And just see, this is one kind of structure, and we can also apply texture by dragging that onto the player directly in the scene. So this is another kind. This is another kind. So what I like is I like this particular thing. So let me leave this on the player and see, we have successfully created our player and scaled the player and applied the texture also. So we have our basic setup in our game. And notice one thing, in the game we have our camera moving around something, right? We have, like, we need our camera to move around this we need our camera to move around this like this. So for that we need a focal point. Like assume that you are having you are holding your camera, like you are having your phone camera in with front camera, and you are trying to take selfie. And if you rotate your hand, it will rotate as if your your face is the central point, and the camera rotates around you, right? In the same way, we'll have one focal point, and when we rotate that focal point, our camera must also rotate. Let me show you in action how does that happen. So for that, let me create an empty object and make sure that it's in the center of our scene, which is 000, and there let me name that as focal point. So we have this empty object as focal point, and let me show you how this can help us in rotating the camera. So what I'll do is I'll just drag my camera and give it as its child. You might notice a change, like see, uh, in the camera position, see the camera position as now it is 0 10 minus 20. If I change this particular, we can have two types of what do we say coordinate system in here. See, let's just let me just show you one thing. See, now we have our focal point here. What I'll do is I'll just try to rotate. I'll try to change this rotation of this focal point around y-axis. And see, we when we do that, our camera is also rotating with that. That is because the camera is child to that. That's the only reason for that. So whenever our here our camera follows local coordinate system with respect to this particular focal point. So let me just show you that in the script now. So let us get back to our global positioning, and let me create a new script here, new folder called scripts. And in this, let me create a new C# script, and I'll call this rotate camera. This one I'll be attaching that to my focal point here. So when I edit the script, here see, when we changed our y rotation or focal point, we somehow managed to rotate our camera. So if we try to rotate this using our keyboard input, the left and right arrows or A or D keys, we can definitely make our camera move. So to test that, before, let me just try to do that in my update. So I'll write it as transform dot rotate, and I'll rotate about the y-axis. So I need a unit vector along y-axis. So that is vector3 dot up, which is shorthand for writing 0 1 0. And the other thing, transform dot rotate vector3 dot up. The other thing which we need to give is the angle we want to change. So I'll be giving that as one, saying I need to change 1 degree. So I have saved this, and now let me try playing that and see what happens. See, my camera is constantly rotating, right? Uh, this is because of our focal point movement. So we have our focal point moving around the y-axis 1 degree at a time. It's the same thing that with our camera. So we have this focal point, like we have this empty game object as our focal point, and we have, and just because our camera is child of it, and as we are rotating this, the main camera is also rotating. This same concept can be applied to our first game, which is driving simulator. There we can make our camera as our child, and whenever our car rotates, our camera also will be rotating. So let's just get back here, and this time let's try to code this such a way that this can be done when we click our arrows. So for that, here we need our horizontal input, because we want to use our left and right arrows or A and D keys. For that, let me just create a public float rotate speed so that I can change later. in the inspector, and here in the update, let me create a horizontal input variable. So float horizontal input, and I will initialize this with the input dot. We need our input, right? And this time we'll be using our axis again. So we need our horizontal axis. Input dot get axis horizontal. So this is the thing with horizontal input. So here we can give the rotation, like we want this to rotate for based on horizontal input with the given rotate speed, and we want this to happen based on time, not frame rate. So we need to include this time dot delta time, which gives difference between two frames in a particular second. Like if we have 20 frames per second, then this value would be 1 by 20, and that is seconds. So let me save this and get back to Unity. And here make sure that you initialize this rotate speed variable. Let me set that to 50 and let's save this. So let's see what happens. See, uh, whenever I'm clicking my arrows, I'm able to move in the ways I wanted. So uh, this is the thing we have till now. We successfully made our camera to move the way we wanted it to. So now let's program our player to do what we want. So let's create this player controller script. Player controller, and attach it to the player. Sorry. Yes, my script got attached, and let me double click that and open that in the Visual Studio. So here we want our player, we want to give our forces to the player using the vertical input, which is up and down arrow and W or S keys. So to do that, first we need some speed variable, right? So let me create this public float speed, and to deal with uh, rigid body, we need reference for that. So we can create private rigid body, and I'll call this player RB. And in start, let me refer that player RB equal to get component. Sorry, get component. Get component, and the type of component I need is a rigid body. And see this. Uh, as we have this particular player controller script attached to our player, this get component just goes here, uh, goes to our player and checks all these components, and if there is the component we need, which is a rigid body, if the rigid body is present, to our variable player RB, reference to this particular rigid body will be given. Whereas if it is not present, the value will be null. So this is how our get component works. As we already have our rigid body on our player as a component, so this player RB will help us to use methods which rigid body gives us, like adding force, all physics related stuff. So now let's uh, let's take the vertical input and add the force in the way that helps our player to move forward and backward. So uh, let me show you that. So here, let's create a float forward input, and I will initialize this with I'll call input class, and in the input class I'll be accessing the get access method, and this time my access is vertical. So let me check that once. Edit. Yeah, input and okay. See, I have made a mistake. I made a mistake with the spelling. It's CL. Yes, now it's okay. So now let me use this forward input to somehow move that in the forward and backward directions. So for that, let's add force using our player RB. So we refer our player RB and we'll use add force method, and in that we'll be giving this value vector3 force. So for that, vector3 dot forward. So we want our player as of now to move uh, for it's forward or backward. See, there are two different things. See, at this particular point of time, when I focus on the player, see, forward for this player is towards the G axis, whereas backward for the player is towards negative G. But this time, let's do that. Let's move it in such a way that it moves to our sorry. Yeah, let's move it in such a way that it moves forward when we press arrow key, up arrow key or W. It moves backward when we press down arrow key or S. So let me do that. Let me place the Z as 0 again. So let me go back to my script and see here. So for that we have given vector3 dot forward, and we have multiplied this with speed and then with forward input. See here, we don't need our time dot delta time because we are not giving uh, we are not telling this to move a particular distance or to rotate by a particular value for every frame. We are we are just giving force to it whenever we press something. So in this case, we don't need our time dot delta time because the movement is taken care by the forces, not our frame update or something like that. So now let's just test that and see how it behaves. So first let me just use my up and down arrow keys and see what happens without using my camera rotation. So here, wait, nothing happens. Yes, I know why it is. See, I have given my speed as 0. Let me change that to something like 5 and test that now. Yes, see, it rotates, right? But see, let me get back that, and yeah, now even if I see, I'm going almost like perpendicular to that. Even if I rotate, see, it just moves in the same forward and backward. But what we want is this time, see, let me pause this and tell you. So when we see our focal point and see it's in the global positioning system. So when I click local, see, for our focal point, it's now this is our forward. notice the clear difference between what do we say, the local and global positioning system, global coordinate system. See, when we have global, every game object will be rotating as if they have rotating or moving as if they follow this particular coordinate system. But when we change that to local, uh, that is their own coordinate system. Like, see our just wait. See our focal point. When I change this now, see now it is. See, its position is changing in its. So when I try to change this in local, see my x and z are changing, but I am just rotating in my z axis, right? This is because it's in its local positioning system. Whenever we want to deal with a local system, globally there may be two or more axes affecting just because of the angle they have with the normal things. You might not clearly understand this, but that's okay. All we need to know is now we are following this global positioning system, but this local coordinate system also can be accessed. We can have this local coordinate system also. See, for when we have this global system here, the forward for everything will be z, but locally for this focal point its forward is this, is in this direction, because our camera is like that. So let me unpause this, and when I rotate camera, you can find that the new forward or backward is changing. So we want in this way, like we want our player to move. Like, see, if we this time we have this as this says forward, and now our player must move forward in this direction whenever we click up arrow, and backward means in this backward direction whenever we click down arrow. So this time we need to use this focal point forward instead of our normal vector 3 dot uh, forward. So here we need to somehow refer to focal points forward. So for that we need reference to the game object. So let me write private game object, and I'll call it focal point. And here let me get access to the focal point by using focal point equal to game object dot find of, and this needs a string name. So see here, game object dot find is a method that can give access to the game objects that are present in our hierarchy, and that will be done by searching by its name. So here our the name here is focal space point. Let me copy that, and here let me paste that. So this is the thing. Here by this we'll have the reference to our focal point, and now instead of using vector 3 dot forward, what I'll do is I'll use focal point dot uh, dot I, let's use transform dot forward. Yes, see here we are somehow accessing our transform of our focal point, and in that we'll be using this forward. And this says the blue axis of the transform in world space. So that just means that, see, whenever say we have, let's focus on this focal point. So now we have our focal point like this, whereas when I move this a bit, rotate this a bit, see our focal point forward is this. Now let me move my player to see that our player will rotate. I think I didn't save that. Let me see. Yes, I didn't save that. Now let me play that again. see, just check clearly. Now our focal point is like this. Now if I move my player, see the player is moving about the focal point forward or backward. It's moving according to the focal point uh, z direction, which is forward to focal point. So let me change this direction to like this. See, now it happens, right? So this is the thing that's happening. Now we have successfully made our player to move however we wanted. See, now I can rotate it like this. Now it just have fallen. What I can do, I guess I can increase the speed a bit. Let me make it 10 and try that again. Let me focus on the focal point so that looks better. What I can do is, see, in this way I have defined my player control so that the player moves however I wanted. So with this we have finished our player control and the first lesson too. I guess, see how cool it is, like we are able to move this what however we wanted, like see, it's rotating about in the forward direction of camera always. Whenever we press some like arrow keys. Yes, this is cool. I'll... So let's just see what we have learned in this lesson. We have seen how to apply textures onto a game object. We have used our camera as our child to a empty object which we used as our focal point. And now we have seen the global versus local coordinates, whereas in our global coordinates everything follows the coordinate system we see here in the top of our scene view, whereas local coordinates is the coordinate that itself has, like a game object have on its own. And next and this time we got the direction of another game object. We had our focal point and we used the forward of the focal point to move our player in that particular direction. So these are the things we have seen in our lesson 1. So now let's move on to the lesson 2, where we'll be programming our enemy in such a way that the enemy keeps coming, like the enemy keeps attacking us, and we'll also add randomization, like we'll add a random spawn to our enemy so that each enemy we instantiate will be coming from a random position. So let's create our enemy. Our enemy is also another sphere. So let me go to my hierarchy, right click, and there select 3D object sphere, and let me just give the values 1.5, the same values, the same size as our player, and set the text with Y and with Z axis also. And see, this got merged with our player, so let me move my Z a bit. Yes, now that looks good. And now let me add my rigid body to this so that our player and enemy have some physical interaction. So let me save this and test now. See, that's cool, right? Just by adding rigid body, we got this particular behavior. And sorry, let's name this as enemy. And also let's give it some texture so that it looks better. Let me try this particular thing. Let me try this texture. No. Yes, let me use this instead. Yes, I guess that is okay for our player. Sorry, for our enemy. Yeah, I'll leave this with this. No, sorry. Yeah, I guess this is cool for my enemy. So we can add a random texture to our player however we wanted. See, we have our physical interaction, but we need to tweak this physics so that we'll get some cool bouncy effect. Let me show you how we do that. For that, we need to create physics materials. And in this, let me create a new physics material. Yes, this is the thing. I'll call it as bouncy. And here I'll not do anything. I'll just add this to my player and to my enemy also. Yes, we can check if they are correctly added by seeing in our collider here and see we have material as bouncy, whereas for our enemy also we have this material as bouncy. And now let's just see what's happening now. What change is this bouncy physics material bring in our game? And see there is friction added. Let's see what this bouncy contains, the physics material. See, it added us this, it gave us this dynamic friction and static friction of 0.6. Static friction is the friction which will be present when a particular game object is static, whereas dynamic friction is the one when it is moving. So all we need to focus is on our bounciness. Let me make that one. And here we have this bounce combined. This is to show how the bounciness is calculated and used. So we have a bunch of different options like average, where when the two objects bounciness will be taken, or two or more objects will be taken and average is done. The minimum one, it takes the minimum of all the interacting objects, it multiplies both of them, so that there is a scope of increased bounciness. Maximum is the obviously the maximum bounciness. Here we would like to have this as multiply, and let us save this and now test this again. We almost have that cool bouncy effect in here. Let's just see closely again. And we can, if we want, we can increase that by increasing this bounciness as we wanted. That's up to you people. Just have it however you wanted to have. So now it's time for our enemy to give some behavior to our enemy. The enemy is just sitting there, it's not doing anything. So let's go to our scripts, create an enemy script in which we'll be writing all enemy behavior, enemy, and I'll be attaching this script to my enemy game object in here. So I have my enemy. Yes, and I have this enemy script attached to this. And now by opening script, here I want my enemy to be coming towards my player. Let me just show you. See, vector arithmetic is in a way similar to normal arithmetic itself. So let's see, we need our enemy to come towards our player, right? So let me how to show you this. I'll be using pain further. So let me just try to explain that in a better way. Say this is our just yeah. Say this is our player and this is our enemy. And in the global positioning system, we know position of like this is the we know position of this and also the position of this. So to know where our enemy has to go, we need this particular vector, right? We want our player to move in this particular direction. So for that, what we'll be doing is we know our so enemy position. I'll call this enemy pos plus this particular. Let me call this vector x, uh, which is this particular vector, and I'll equate that is equal to player position, right? So this is our vector x. So here, so this is our vector x here. So we need a vector x, but we already know our player position and enemy position, right? They will be we can access them through their transform. Now to have our vector x, we can do a simple arithmetic operation like vector x equal to player player position minus enemy position. This works with vectors also, and we'll be using this vector to move enemy towards our player in the update. So let's use this particular concept there to make our enemy move towards our player. So let me just erase this. I don't need that. So let me get back to Unity and see. We need to deal with our rigid body now to move our player towards our to move our enemy towards our player. So first let me create a speed variable. We obviously need some speed variable that using which we can control how fast or slow whenever we deal with movement, any kind of movement or rotation. So here let me use my get access to my rigid body, and I'll call this enemy RB. And as I said, we need our player access to our player also. So this time private game object, and I'll call this player itself. So here we need to initialize our enemy RB and our player. So enemy RB, I'm initializing with get component. Sorry. And the type of component I need is rigid body. So as my enemy is already having a rigid body, did I add that? Yes, my enemy is having a rigid body. So to my enemy RB rigid body, this particular rigid body reference will be given. So let me get there. Yeah, and now my player. See, as earlier I can just access my player using GameObject.find, and I need to give my name here. So this is the thing. So now I successfully have the reference to my player and this my player complete object and to my enemy rigid body. And obviously as the script is in here, I have access to my transform also. So let me change the speed to 3 as of now. And now in my update, I'll just keep on adding force such that it's towards my player always. So let me grab the enemy rigid body and I'll be using this add force method. And to this method, I'll be giving the vector player dot transform dot position the vector 3 minus transform dot position. So let me, yeah, see this player transform dot position refers to the player's position, whereas transform dot position refers to this enemy's position. As this script is present on an enemy, transform refers to the transform component of this particular game object on which the script is attached. So this way we are referring our transform position and we need to multiply this with our speed variable. See, if we leave this like this, we'll be making a big mistake where the multiplication takes before the subtraction. This is because of the way it's implemented, the compiler. Uh, it follows the rules. Even in our maths, we'll be following BODMAS rule, right? We'll do multiplication before subtraction. So to prevent that, let's wrap this around in brackets. So first we'll know the direction which we get by subtracting these two vectors, and then we'll be multiplying with the speed just to amplify that a bit. So now let me go back to Unity and try now. See this, what do we say, this enemy is so aggressive, and that is because of the vector value we have. See, as we are moving forward far away to our enemy, the enemy is getting more powerful. That is because of the vector values. See, when there is huge difference between enemy and our player, say like this. Now let's just test in this way how this happens. See see this time our enemy is so aggressive, right? See the difference between. Now let me move this to very close distance and see what happens. The enemy will not be that much aggressive. See, whereas when we have our enemy in here, not that completed, like here. Now let's see what happens. See, our enemy will quickly get the acceleration to just knock our player. This is because of the vector we are using. As we are just using the vectors, their magnitude will be more whenever they're far apart, and their magnitude will be less when they are closer. Just because of this difference in position, the player is getting the what do we say, the extra force or extra acceleration to be able to just knock our player that easily. We don't want that to happen. We want that in a normalized fashion where no matter where our enemy is, it's always the same way. Like say if we somehow made this a unit vector, and wherever the player is, like say if we only consider the unit vector of that in that particular direction, see here, here the vector will be different, whereas here the vector will be different. So wherever it is, or even in this case, see in this way the vector will be different. In whatever case it is, if we somehow manage to just grab unit vector in that particular direction, will be just be able to give what do we say, will be able to grab the direction and we can control the speed, right? We can use this speed variable to control the speed of the enemy in that particular direction. So to grab the unit vector, we'll be using something called as dot normalize. This is a vector 3, and when I call this normalize, see what it says. Returns the vector with a magnitude of 1. So it will take a vector and gives a unit vector in the same direction. So here is it is a bit messy, right? So let's create a new variable here. So I'll grab this, I'll cut this, and I'll create a new variable called vector3, and I'll call it as look direction, and I will equate that to this normalized vector, and see that is a unit vector, and that magnitude will be speed, right? A unit vector into some value is that value itself. Like so, when we have speed as 3, this complete vector will be always having the value of the magnitude of 3. So this time, let's see what happens now. Let me get back to Unity and see. First, let me place this closer to our player. See, it's really close. Let me see what happens. See, even when now I'll just place it far away. Yes. Now let me see what happens. See, unlike in the before time, we don't have our enemy to be so aggressive. This time our enemy is also quite good, and now I have my, what do we say? I have my enemy behavior done. So what I'll do is I'll just make it a prefab, and I can later use that prefab to spawn my new enemy copies. So let me create the prefabs folder, and this time I'll just drag drop this in here. So creating my enemy prefab here. Now I don't want my enemy to be present in my scene anymore. Let me delete this. I'll just create new enemies whenever I wanted. For that, let me create a spawn manager, which is an empty game object. And this time, let me create the script also, the spawn manager script. Spawn manager. So, sorry guys. Let me add this. Yes, it got successfully added. And now I have entered the spawn manager script, and first of all, this is to instantiate my player enemy game object, right? So I need reference to that. So public game object, and I'll call this enemy prefab, and enemy prefab. Yes. And let me get back to Unity and refer that first. Give a reference to it. So spawn manager, and here see it's asking for me to add a game object, and here in prefabs, let me drag drop this. Yes, I have done that successfully, and I can see my enemy here. So coming back to the script, Let me just test this by spawning the enemy at a particular position I need. So I'll call the instantiate method. As we know, instantiate creates a copy of game object. So my game object is my enemy prefab. And next, um, see, let me just show you what happens when we just give enemy prefab itself. See here, we have in the prefab itself, we have a particular position, rotation and scale, right? When we leave that as it is, it just creates a prefab at this position itself. So let me play this and show you. See, let me get back and see. Next time also the enemy will be positioned at the same place. So instead we can give a particular location where we want to place it with the rotation we need. So we can create new vector 3 of say 0 comma 0 comma 6. Yes, and rotation I am leaving the rotation of the player itself. I mean the rigid body, it's enemy prefab itself. So let me say this, and this time my enemy must spawn at the correct location 006. So let me, I have paused immediately and see it's around, see it's a very small values, right? And that happened because we are moving our play enemy using the enemy script. And see the z, it's approx 65.999 something, and this y is very small, and x is also very small. So that's the thing. Yes, we have our enemy like this, but we want our enemy to be spawning at random positions. We don't want our enemy to be in the same position all the time. So for that, what we'll be doing is we'll be using our random class again to do that. So let's get back and see here. Let's once see which random values we can use. So we can have our enemy. I'll grab an enemy once and see. In this case, we can have our z value to be like, I can have a value of 9, right? See, I can have a z value from 9 to, sorry, -9. Yes, same with, let's see now, x-axis. So for safety, like I'll be having 8 as my boundary. So let me do this. I'll create a new float. Yeah, float. What I should say, I can call it as spawn range x, and I will give spawn position. Yeah, spawn position x. Spawn cos x, and I will give a random value. Random dot range of, sorry, random dot range of, I'll be giving values as -8 comma 8, and we can also give the float values, it's up to us. else we can have float values too. Like I can give this minus 8.0. So this time I'll be my random dot range will be generating float values also. And the other thing is float spawn position z equal to random dot range of 10 here minus 8.0 f to 8.0 f. Sorry. Yeah. So now I can use these variables here, spawn position x and spawn position z. So I'm just grabbing a square of side 8 and randomly spawning each enemy wherever I wanted. I can just delete the one in my hierarchy and see where my see this time it's spawned here and next time let's see. Yes, it's in another random location. And let's try it once more. Yeah, once last time. And, okay, so this is fine. We have our randomness, and now it's bit odd to see everything in one line. Let me create a new variable for this particular position. Here I'll be creating a vector tree and I'll call that spawn position or random position. Yeah, this is random, right? I have this as a random position and I'll just paste that. So I'll be using my random position here. So now let's there is no change, but let's just see that. And before that, see I have a bunch of 8.0s here, so I can create a float and I can give that as spawn range and I can give that a value of 8.0f and I can replace all these 8.0f with the spawn range. Spawn range, yeah. Sorry. Spawn range, yes. I can give the same values for G also. Yes. So now let's just test that. We just added variables. We didn't know anything other than that. Yeah. Let me let's try different times. See our we have it in a new position. Now again another position. Yeah, another position. Yes, nice. So we finally got the randomness. This time, what we'll be doing is we'll be creating a new method for this separately. Till now, we have created our own methods, own few of our own methods, but we never returned anything. So let me just show you. I'll create a new private method, and as of now, let me place it void, and I'll call this generate random location, random position. And for this, I'll be just paste this particular part of code in here. And see, it says there is no random position here. I need to somehow refer this particular function and get the random position I need. So to do that, we need to return this value. Say Returning is something like giving some value to the calling function. So to do that, we need to change the return data type here to vector3, the one which we wanted to return, and here it's written random pos. So having this like this, I can call that particular function here, generate random position. So see, every time this particular function creates a random position because of this random variables, it's creating a vector3, and this vector3 I'm returning that. So here when we call this instantiate, uh, a copy of this enemy prefab will be done. That copy we need to place that at this particular position. So this function will be called. When this function will be called, this whole bunch of code will be executed, and the last value random position will be given here. So instead of having a variable and calculating its value, we are just uh, having another method specially dedicated to generate a random position itself. And this rotation is the same with our enemy prefab. So that's we need this method in our future when we spawn group of like waves of enemies. So that is the thing. So with this we finished our second lesson also. Here we have seen the physics materials which added bounciness, and we have seen the vector in the 3D space. We have used our difference of vectors to indicate our direction in which our enemy has to move, but later as it is changing based on the distance between both of them, we managed or we changed into a normal vector and used that. Later we have seen, yes, we have normalized those vectors so that we'll have a unit vector in that particular direction. Last but not least, we have seen methods with return values. We have returned the vector3 value from a method, and we used that in our game to generate random positions. So with this, I guess we can end the session today.